Hey, this is Passy from Passy's World of ICT, the guy with the white hat. And here we are with our final lesson on the Southern Dog Club Access database, and we're going to make the database client ready. So let's have a look here. In this lesson, we're going to complete the database and we're going to install it on Juanita's PC. So when we run it, there won't be any ribbon at all at the top because we're making a release type database. You'll be able to put in the password and click OK. Then you'll get your splash screen and the familiar main menu. All right, so that's what we're trying to build, but there'll be a lot more to it than that. On the main menu, they will not be able to right-click on things and do any changes whatsoever. It's going to be locked down and fully secure and not have the developer functions available to the end user. So it should be perfectly safe and secure for Juanita and the dog club to use. So let's just take a quick look at what it's going to be. So you can see here we've got a kind of a folder here. This is what you need for the final dog club. We've got a shortcut which we're going to put on the desktop. We've got the ICO, we've got all these other things here, and you'll need all your images as well. And you can get all of this, of course, in the downloads. Now we make an ACCDE executable version. See how it's got the padlock on it, but then we make an ACCDR, which is an access runtime, or we like to call it the release version, the final version. And notice when we double click this to start it up, or if we use the shortcut, would do the same thing. You put in the password, which by the way is DOGS, and then we click OK. And we get our splash screen. Notice there were no ribbons at all there on the password screen. Now if you show the ribbon, it's a very reduced down ribbon like this. And the only thing available is file and print for if we're doing a report. So if we run one of the reports like the dog owner's report, and we want to print that report out, the user will be able to go file and print, okay, and print preview. And there we are. Although print preview is not too big there. But anyway, that'll give a preview of what it looks like, and then they can print it and all that sort of thing on paper. So let's just close that down. And that's basically what we're working on. All right, so remember, I'm a bit of a slow talker, so make sure you increase the play speed on the video and it'll flow a lot better. So you go to that tools cog on the play bar and click on that, and then go to playback speed and make it 1.5 or 1.75, and you'll find the video flows a lot better. Now this is going to be a very long lesson. It took us a long time to make this lesson. That's why it's been so long coming. We had to do a lot of research and a lot of trying things out and testing them to make sure it was all working properly. So we've done all the hard work for you. Now you can just do the basic learning, which we simplified for you. So yeah, there's a timeline index, so take breaks, especially when we get to the section of changing the database options. You'll need to take breaks during that. All right, so to start this training lesson, you will need a database. So if you've been doing the whole course and you got up to the photo buttons lesson and the password lesson, just use the database from that. Otherwise, you need to get the client database start database from the lesson downloads files. And that's going to have the PDF of detailed step-by-step instructions, the ICO image you need, and with the dog and member images as well. And if you haven't done the previous lessons too, make sure you copy that start database into your C, make a folder on your C drive called C:SDC, so call the folder SDC, and copy everything from the downloads from that. And the password is dogs, all in lowercase, DOGS, because it's going to ask for a password whenever you start this database up, because we did that back in the passwords lesson. So anyway, yeah, get the client start database. I think it's less than $2 US to buy in the downloads, and that'll make life a lot easier. So we need to do the following steps in this lesson. We're going to stop that annoying enable content message at the top. And that can also be a problem for users if they just close that message rather than clicking the enable content button. So I just want to get rid of that thing altogether and not have it there for the client, the final customer. We're going to customize the current database settings. This is probably the longest section of the video. We've got about nearly 20 settings we need to go through to turn off all the developer functions we've been using to design things and change them, and make sure the user can't change anything now. They can just enter their data in for new members. They can modify members, change a phone number, they can delete a member, they can add a photo and do the same things for dogs. They can run their reports, but we don't want anyone getting in there and changing the design or doing anything to the database that could do any harm. So there's a lot of settings we have to change to bring that about. Once we've got that under control, we'll make a custom icon for the application, which I think we forgot to show you in the demo, but you would have maybe noticed if we'd shown you that when it runs, it didn't have the A for access little icon in the top left-hand corner. It actually had the little dog with SDC on it. And when it's running in the toolbar at the bottom of the screen, it doesn't have the A either. It has the SDC icon instead. So I'll show you how to do that, how to make it have a custom icon, and then we're going to get into making these executable, and then this DR runtime version, which is the one we demonstrated to you. And you notice they had no ribbon and no opportunity for the user or the client to make any accidental redesign or changes to the database at all. They can still do all their things they need to do, but they can't go in and actually modify any of the software. Just like when you use Microsoft Word, you can click on the ribbon and do all the things, but you can't go in behind the ribbon and actually change things, all right? It's all locked down. So you're just a user doing your thing, but you're not actually getting in there and trying to do something and ending up breaking something. We're going to create that desktop shortcut icon on their desktop, so that all they have to do is click that and that launches the database. We're going to talk about how you do the client installation and include the database images there as well, and what to do if the images aren't showing up when you've installed the database. Now, all databases, as we need, is adding new members and doing work and processing people paying their fees. That all needs to be backed up just in case she loses her laptop or it gets stolen or she spills coffee all over it or something. So each day she'll need to do a backup, and we've simplified that. She just needs a USB stick or an external drive, and to just copy everything onto that, basically. That will do most of the work. And we'll just show you, last of all, that will mark where we finish the course, but we'll show you an alternative menu design, just a different menu design you could have used for this project. Now, as we said, some of the steps are quite long, so this should probably be like 5 separate videos, but as you know, we like to just do everything together so you can see how all the bits link up and get the whole job done and build an end product during a lesson. Now, that makes the lessons long, so make sure you're watching them at 1.5 speed, but the other thing is, just do part of the lesson. Do it as if this was just one video on customized database settings. And when you finish that, just stop and take a break. And you can come back to the timeline index and find out where it says make application have custom icon. And then you can continue on from there. So you just break it up into whatever size you need. If you want to do this as 8 separate items, okay, use the timeline index to do it that way. If you've got a slab of time, like a whole sort of 2 hours at the moment spare, do the whole thing all in one hit. All right, we make it very flexible so you can do it whatever way you want. So let's get started on the first thing we need to do. I'm working to get our finished database client ready, and that's to stop that enable content message. So most likely when you start up an Access database, you get this yellow message across the top, security warning, some active content has been disabled, enable content, and usually you just click this button here and then everything's okay and it works fine. If you just close that instead of clicking it, all right, because there is an X button at the end of this, which you can click, what will happen is it'll stop all active content from working, which means any button you click here that has a macro on it is not going to work anymore. And as you can see, what will happen is you get these errors like this one down the corner. The quit macro action cannot run, blah, blah, blah. And that's because you did not click enable content. So what would be a whole lot easier was if content was already enabled, we don't have to have this message. We don't have the risk of them just closing the message and then the whole database not working. So that's what we're going to do in this step. All right, now to stop the message, we've got to modify the settings in the macro settings in the Windows Trust Center. All right, so this Trust Center for Windows works for other applications or any Access database you load up. So be careful with what you do here. So first step, click on File, okay, and then right down the bottom of this screen that opens up, there's a thing called Options, which we're going to be using a lot in this lesson. So you're going to be clicking on the file on the ribbon, then going Options. You will have to click, of course, on the main menu. There's a button there that says Show Ribbon. So make sure you show ribbon so the ribbon's showing up at the top of the screen, and then click on your file and then your options. And we're going to go to Trust Center, this one. So it'll be on General at the moment. Make sure you click on Trust Center. Okay, and then this screen will come up and you click on Trust Center Settings, all right? So click on that. And be very careful, as we said, with these settings, as they affect more than just one database, okay? So what we're going to do in the Trust Center, this is when we're inside the Trust Center, go to Message Bar, make sure that's set up so it shows the message bar and shows the policy tips. So make sure this is marked and this is marked, this one is not marked, okay? And then on ActiveX settings, make sure that one's on Disable All Controls Without Notification. Okay, so that's how that needs to be set up for ActiveX sections in the Trust Center. And then onto the main one we need to do is we need to have all macros enabled. Okay, so in the Trust Center now, go to Macro Settings and make sure this one is selected, the last one, Enable All Macros. Now it says, oh, not recommended, potentially dangerous. Well, this database, we made it and we made the macros in it, okay? So it's going to be okay. So we click on that and just enable all macros because that's what we'll need for the client's machine. And then we are finally ready to click OK because we're done with the Trust Center and that completes the whole setup. So just click this OK button here. All right, you then return to the Access Options main panel here, okay, and so you just need to click OK on that one as well. So we went into the Trust Center, now we're back out of it and click OK. And it says here you must close and reopen the database for the content to take place. All right, so we just need to click on the top of screen, there's that little save icon we've been using during all of our lessons, file and close it, and then close down Access completely as well. All right, and then when we double click that database that we've just made all the changes to, that start database you got from the downloads, you made these changes, it'll now open up straight away with no enable content message. You'll get your splash screen and then it'll come through to the main menu. And if you try any of these buttons or buttons on the members and dogs forms, they all work okay. So having those buttons active straight away without any need to click the Trust Center, the enable content and anything like that is going to make Juanita's life a lot easier and make the database look a whole lot professional too. Like when the thing first starts up, what the heck is it giving some problem type message for that I'm not even sure what it means? What does enable content mean? So it's just going to have the database open up and ready to use, which is exactly what we want. It looks professional. So that is step one done, enable content. Now, if you're pressed for time at the moment and that's all you've had time to do, that's okay. Just save your Access work and you can stop the video and you can come back. And in the timeline index, you can click where we're doing customized database settings, all right? And this is, and then you can continue, all right? So you don't have to do this video all in one hit or any of our videos. All our videos have timeline indexes in them. Okay, now customized database settings. This is the biggie, this one here. There's a lot of settings to adjust in that current database options panel because we don't want the clients to be able to get into the VBA code. We don't want them pressing function and F11 to open up the side panel and go into a table and suddenly decide they'll make some new field and put all sorts of things in it or something like that. We don't want them changing any of the macros that work the buttons, and we don't want them to accidentally damage this application we've spent hours and hours building during our course here. Just by doing something that they don't really understand what they're doing. So here's a list of all the settings we need to make to lock down that database and make it completely safe and secure for people to use. So we're going to have to go into all of these ones down here, and we're going to have to go to all of these ones as well. All right, so there's a lot of things to do here. So this is going to be a long section. So buckle in and let's get into it. We'll do them one by one. All right, so there's lots of things to modify. So we go File, and then we go back down to Options again, which we were just doing before, but this time we're choosing Current Database. And in Current Database, when you click on that, this opens up. But see this scroll bar here is very long, all right? And there's lots and lots of settings when you scroll down this scroll bar. So it's not just this one panel here of settings. There are lots of settings, and we're not even going to do all of them. So don't go doing any extra ones which we don't tell you about, because you can do a lot of things here which could mess up your database and not make it work if you don't know what you're doing. All right, so only do the ones that we show you. So let's start off here right at the beginning, the application title. Now with the start database we gave you, it should already have Southern Dog Club in there. And what that does is when it runs up the very top of the screen in that brown top bar, it just says Southern Dog Club instead of saying some path name and some access file name. Okay, it just says Southern Dog Club, which we need it to do, and that looks a lot more professional. So that one's already set up for you. Application icon, that takes a few steps, and we're going to come back to that one at the very end. All right, so we're going to do about 20 of these things, and then we'll come back and we'll do application icon as a totally separate thing. Number 3, we've already set that up in a previous lesson. Display form, the first form that comes up when access starts is the splash screen. All right, after you enter that DOGS password, you get that screen which just tells you what the application is, as those pictures of the doggies at the beach. So we want to leave that exactly as it is. If you were not having a splash screen, or you don't want to have one, what you can do is you could have that open up the main menu first. All right, so you could use that drop down arrow there and make it open up the main menu form first instead, if you wanted to bypass having a splash screen. All right, so leave that one as it is. So web display form should be on none, so leave that. So far it's been very boring. You've had nothing to do. We've got 4 things set up. Display status bar. Now make sure this one is unticked. So you want that one left blank. And what that's going to do is it's going to turn off that very bottom of the access screen. There's this bar, which we've been using a bit at the far right hand side to change between layout view and design view and form view. Okay, so we want to turn that off so it's not there, because we certainly don't want a user to go down to the bottom right hand corner and suddenly click on design view and start moving around everything on a form and messing it all up. Okay, so we've got to turn that guy off, so make sure it's unticked. And number 4, with leaving web display, I've already spoken about. Number 6, it should already be in overlapping windows. The type of database we've built, it has pop-up windows that show up and are in certain positions on the form. You can also have tabbed documents where you click across the top. If you had a lot of things to put on a screen, you would use tabbed documents, but ours wasn't filling the whole of your computer screen. So ours is overlapping windows. So just leave that set on overlapping windows. You will see other videos on YouTube where they've made a tabbed documents type database design. You can do that, but ours is overlapping windows. So don't go changing that or you'll mess up everything. Now you need to scroll further down here. Okay, so either wind your mouse or push down on this bar and drag it, all right, or use your page down. But the next thing is use special key. So untick that one. And what that's going to do is that's going to stop them being able to press down F11 key and get that side navigation panel and go directly into tables and into queries and their designs and things. So that one must be unticked. The next one, compact on close. Make sure that's ticked. What it does is it kind of behind the scenes, it runs this little housekeeping programs and kind of tidies up your whole database within the database engine inside Access, all right? So you want to do that. You want to have it compact on close. So make sure that one's ticked. Remove personal information. You want that ticked so that when people save things, it doesn't put their name in there or their Microsoft Windows username or anything like that. It keeps privacy. That's really important as a privacy and security thing, so make sure that is ticked. Use Windows themed controls on forms. Make sure that is left ticked. Don't untick that, because that's what we're doing. We've got pop-up windows and ours runs like a Windows application, so we need that one ticked. And on to more and more and more of them. All right, so what do we got next? Enable layout view. Now we want to turn that off. We don't want people going into layout view and moving fields around on the form and making our form look all messy or doing anything like that. So make sure that's unticked, and make sure number 12, they can't click and add an extra field while they're looking at a table or something like that. Actually, we're going to stop them completely looking at tables, and they're supposed to work with the screen forms, not with the tables, which are the storage behind the screen. We don't want them going into the table at all. So make sure that's unticked. Check for truncated number fields. That's just ticked by default, so don't untick that. It should already be ticked, and make sure you leave that one ticked. Preserve the source image format. That one is left like that as well. Okay, so we don't want to convert our pictures into bitmaps for Access 2003 and earlier. We're just leaving them. We're running Access 2019, but it's in Office 365, so we certainly don't want to go back to 2003. So leave that one ticked, dotted there as it is, right next to that number 14. And we're getting there. We're getting there. Okay, so if we scroll a bit further down, displaying the navigation pane, we need to untick that so that they can't even open up that left-hand navigation pane with all of the tables and queries and things listed like that. So make sure that is unticked. And down in ribbon and toolbar options here, allow full menus, make sure that's unticked. So that's going to turn off all those items in the ribbon, except for like file and search. They won't be able to click design and go into design view up the top of the ribbon or do anything like that. It's going to give them a very, very reduced ribbon. And later on, we're going to reduce the ribbon using the runtime version of the database to no ribbon at all. Allow default shortcut menus, make sure that is unticked so that when they right click on any objects on the screen, you won't have a menu come up where they can go into design view or change that object or delete it or anything like that. So make sure that one is unticked. And we've got one thing left to do. So there's all these other things like track name, autocorrect info. I don't even know what that one's for. And if you scroll down, there's still more and more here. Don't change any of them. Just leave them the way Access has them at the moment. Truth is, I don't know what they do or why you'd want to change those ones. So do not change them, okay? Don't go tinkering around. Just like with a car, don't open up the bonnet and start, unplugging things and replugging them in on the engine and stuff like that, unless you're a mechanic and you're fixing a problem, right? Just leave it alone. All right, so customized database icon. So we've got an icon, we've got this SDC with the doggy, which we put onto our form, remember up the top left-hand corner, but you need to make the icon change from the letter A when it's running down in the taskbar at the bottom on Windows, where it shows you all your programs that are currently running and things. We need to have an ICO file, so you can't just use a JPEG or a PNG, you've got to have an ICO file. Now we're going to supply you this ICO file here, and it needs to be in the same folder that your Access database is in. So wherever you put the download database, the start database, when you got this in the downloads, make sure it goes in the same database. All the pictures you got go in the same folder. Sorry, everything needs to be in the same folder. And I will show you a bit later on how you could make your own icon. If you've got a JPEG or PNG image, there is a way you can make your own ICO file, and then it can be an icon for an application. But we're just rolling with this one at the moment, SDC ICO from the downloads. And we need to go back into those options again and current database. And this time we're going to do that application icon, which we skipped last time. So click on the browse button for that. And the familiar good old Windows dialog option will open up. Notice it's saying icon browser here, that we're looking for an ICO, and it's set the file type to ICO. So it'll only show, if you go to the downloads folder where you've got all your stuff, it'll only show the ICO one anyway. So you click this once just to select it. So it's highlighted here. Don't go, I think you can also double click it, but it's always safest to just click it once. Okay, so it's selected, and then click the OK button. So we've selected that that's the icon we're using. So Access will put the full path name here. So it's put E drive, PASSY's World of ICT, this big long path name, and then the ICO file. Now, because we put it in the same folder that the database is in, we don't need that long file name. And also, when we put it on our client's machine, we're going to put it all in one folder, all right? So that's not going to be PASSY's World of ICT. It's not going to be this path name, so I won't be able to find the ICO when we copy it across to Juanita, the client's machine. So what you can do is you can just get rid of all the path stuff, just click in there and carefully edit it out, and just have the SDC logo ico.ico, just the name of the ICO file. in here and make sure you leave the .ico on it, and that should be all good. And then click OK at the bottom. All right, so we just need the name of the icon file. We don't actually need the full path name, and in fact we don't want the full path name, because then when we copy this database to other people's machines, it may not find the icon very well. Now if you get an error message like this, we found it's a bit temperamental getting this icon in a couple of times, and so make sure it's a valid ICO file. Well, we definitely had a valid ICO file. Just click OK and just try again. For some reason this thing was playing up and gave that message, I think, once or twice while we were doing it, but we just did it again and then it worked. So just something a bit glitchy there. Now, also, if you've actually closed your database after making all these settings and stuff, because we did all those settings, you won't actually be able to do file options current database and get back in there again. So if you need to fix anything up, or you didn't finish doing the settings, or your ICO is not working or something like that, you can get back into developer mode. There's a little trick that even though we set all those settings up, you can click the database in Windows File Explorer here, just single click it once so it's highlighted. Then you got to push down the Shift key, okay, and hold the Shift key on your keyboard down. Then you double click this to start it up. Now while it's starting up, it's going to flash up putting the dog's password in, and you can't keep your finger on Shift because it's not uppercase DOGS, it's all in little letters, DOGS. So you have to take your finger off the Shift key while you're typing in the DOGS. Then after you've typed in DOGS, just put your finger back on Shift and leave it on Shift and click the OK button on the password. And while the database is starting up, keep your finger on Shift until it's fully started up. So then what will happen is everything should be okay and you can get back into your database. Now, making your own ICO file. Now, this one's for Make a Clock one, because this was actually for a VBNet project where we're making an ICO, but it's the same for all Windows type applications. So you need to go into Photoshop and turn off this proportional sizing thing and go into image size, and make it 256 by 256. So it has to be a square size, and it needs to be 256 by 256. Make sure this is set to pixels, not to inches, because 256 is a lot of inches. It'll be a billboard sized ICO that won't work. And then you click OK, and we saved it as clockface.png. You can actually save it as PNG or JPEG, but PNG I think works better because it's a higher quality image. Then you need to go online to convert it. Now there's a few different converters when you search for one, but the one we found that's reliable and seems to work at the time we made this video is convertico.com. So you can click this cloud thing and load up your clock that you saved out of Photoshop, and then it's got all these advertising start now things. Don't click those. There's a white arrow next to here where it's showing your ICO file that it's made. Click that one and it'll put it into your downloads folder. Your Windows download folder, and then you can copy it out of the download folder across to where your database is. All right, so that's just how you make your own ICO file, so you can play around with that, and that should work. And when you run it now, when you double click to start it up, notice it doesn't say the letter A up here. It's got our little icon, and it says Southern Dog Club, okay, because we've typed that in the current database options as well. And down the bottom here where all the different icons are running, we've got our little doggy now. We don't have the letter A, so that's really cool. That's made it customized and made it special just for our client, okay? So they know it's, hey, my application's running there, and there's my little doggy and my SDC. So all going well, that's what you should see on the screen at this stage when you double click on the database. And I think we're just about done with that. Now, if we click Show Ribbon, that's the other thing. From all these settings we did as well for current database, notice when we click Show Ribbon on this screen here down the bottom, there's a Show Ribbon button. You've got just File and Home, and that's it. And if you click on Home, that's all you've got. You don't have Design and View and all these other ones across here. And then if you click on the File one, the only option you've got is Print, for printing out a report, as we showed you right back at the start of this lesson when we were demoing it. And that's it. So the database is now user ready. it's all ready. That's what we want, so that they can't get in and change things. They just want to use it. We're just going to make some more little changes so that you don't get this ribbon at all. And all you get is kind of a brown bar at the top, and you do have the file print available. Okay, so that's kind of the next step. It's not totally user ready, but it's getting very close to it. So this is where we make the executable and runtime versions of the database. Now we've been going for 30 minutes so far. This could be a great time to take a break. Hopefully you've been running at 1.5 speed and you've only been going 20 minutes. Or 1.75, and I don't know the maths for that, but it'd even be less, 15 minutes. But now's a good time to take a break. We've done a lot of things, and we've sort of got a client ready. We just need to make these other versions of the database, because we're actually not going to give them that ACCDB sort of file we've just made. We're going to give them an ACCDR file for runtime, and we're going to need to explain to you what that's all about. So take a break and then come back to the video. All right, welcome back. So we're in the home stretch nearly. All right, so it's client ready in terms of functionality and security that we've got. Now, there's three main steps here to install it on a laptop. We need to install this thing called Access Runtime, and then we make an ACCDE executable file, and then we turn that into an ACCDR runtime or release version of the SDC database. So I've got three things to do here. All right, now the client doesn't actually need to have Office 365 and the developer version of Access that we've been using. They don't have to have that on the machine. They could have no Access database at all, and Microsoft lets you get this free runtime version, which you can put on their machine, and they can run an Access database. They can't make any changes to it or create a new table or do anything like that, which is exactly the sort of thing we need for them. But yeah, they don't have to buy Access. So you as a developer had to have Access so that you could obviously do all the functions and make tables and make queries and make reports. But that's already been made, and the user just needs to run it. So they can just use this free version called Access Runtime, which you can get off Microsoft. But they might have Microsoft Office. They've probably got Office 365 anyway, and Access is part of it. That's okay. You don't need Access Runtime, but we'll still make a runtime version of the database for them to use, so that all they can do is run the database. They can't do anything else at all. Now, how to install and download Access Runtime, that's what we'll show you first, and then we'll get into making the executable and runtime versions. All right, so step one, download, install the free Access Runtime. Go to the official Microsoft website, so Google for Microsoft.com or Microsoft.com.au if you're in Australia, or I guess it's Microsoft.co.uk for people in the UK. But we get to that one. We're on the Microsoft.com one. English is language Australian or something, I think. Now we've got on there, you need to do a search. So you've got to search for this thing. So get to the website and there's a little magnifying glass thing. Click on that and type in Access 2019 runtime, because at the time we're making this video, 2019 is the latest Access release. If you don't know what release they're up to, just type Access Runtime and look for the most recent one, but we could put Access 2019 runtime. And in the search results here, it says download and install Microsoft 365 Access Runtime. That's what we need, because we're running 365 actually. But it says here that's Office 2019 Access basically is what we're running at the moment. So Access finds this one, that's been found for us by putting this in the search bar and clicking on the magnifying glass. So we need to click on that link, okay? That's the page you want to go to get the version. And there you'll have the opportunity to download and install Access Runtime. Now, also there'll be the issue of, do you install the 32-bit or the 64-bit version, which is always an issue when you're installing software. But all you need to do is, excuse me, that Windows button that's down the bottom of your computer, you know, with the 4 squares on it, on your computer keyboard, just hold that down and press I for information. Then you can go to System and About. And on the right-hand side, look for System Type Entry and click on that. And that'll tell you whether you've got a 32-bit or 64-bit version of Windows running, okay? And if you got the 64-bit version running, well then obviously you need to download the 64-bit one. All right, most people have that these days, but other people might have the 32-bit. You can just check it there by going Windows I and look for System About and then do System Type. And you'll be able to figure that out. Now you get the download by clicking the download button. That'll put it, run it. Yeah, now do not run it on your device. Just get the exe file that's downloaded, okay? Don't actually run it yet. Click no or cancel if Windows asks for it to run. So the idea is we could copy that install type exe file onto the client's machine and then run it on theirs, because we've already got Office 365 access, so we don't actually want to install this runtime version, okay? We do not want to click the exe file. So you don't need to, and in fact you should not. It's not recommended at all to install Access Runtime on any computer which has already got like Office 365 or Office 2019 or something like that already has Access as part of the package. So don't do the runtime. The other alternative, of course, is we could just wait till we're on the client's computer to get the runtime version then from the website and run it if they don't have access. All right, so we're going to skip that for us because we've already got Office 365, and you'll probably be skipping that as well. Now, the next thing to do is to make a compiled version of the Finnish Dog Club database before we give it to the user. So the key reason for making this is that with this compiled version, the client won't be able to modify queries, reports, and they can't even get around the things we've done by doing Control-G and going into Visual Basic at all to change anything that's on our buttons either, which is very important. We don't want them typing in that code which took ages to develop and test and get right. So we make this executable version first, the E version, and then after we made the E version, then we can make the R, the runtime version. But let's work on the E version first. E comes before the alphabet, before R, and we have to do the E one first. So you've got your ACCDB one here, which we've been working on, and you've saved and closed at the moment. That's in File Explorer. Because we made all those changes, remember, you've got to hold down the Shift key. You've got to click once on this, put your finger on Shift, double click it. When the password comes up for the dogs, temporarily take your finger off Shift, okay? Type in DOGS in little letters, put your finger back on Shift, and then press OK on the password thing, and let the thing run and start up, and then you should be in developer mode where you've got this kind of full ribbon across the top like this when it starts up. Now, if you don't have that, just sort of close it and keep trying this Shift and open until you get it right. It's a bit tricky with the sequence, but once you know how to do it and you do it carefully, you'll be okay. Just follow our instructions there very carefully and it will work. All right, so we've got that ready to go now in developer mode. Now go File, Save As, but we're not going to save it as the usual ACCDB here, which we've been doing for our whole course. I'm actually going to go down and use this guy, make ACCDE. So our file is going to be compiled into an executable only file, okay? So I make a different version of the database, which is the compiled version. Okay, now if you're a programmer, this is all familiar to you because you know you make something in your IDE, your development environment, and you can play around and run with it there. But then you generate this like .exe file or a Python, a py file or something in Python that's then the executable one, okay? But anyway, we haven't done any of that sort of stuff, but take my word, this is what we do. We go Save As and we make in the ACCDE. So make sure that one's clicked and highlighted there before you click the Save As button, and just click the Save As button to save it, and it'll be saving it as an ACCDE. So if you go to your File Explorer and look at your folder now, you'll see you've got one here called Client Database ACCDE. That's just what we named it, so we knew which sort it was. But the main thing is Access put this .ACCDE on the end. And it's also given it this grid pattern and put a padlock on it, which means saying you can't go into the gritty design view and make any changes. That's all padlocked, and this is just a run only or an executable version of the database. So they can add new data in, they can delete, modify dogs and members. They can run their reports and queries and process data, but they can't change the design of any forms, tables, or reports, or get into queries or tables directly and do any accidental damage to the database. So we just called ours Client Database .accde, just so we knew which one it was, and then Access will put that .accde on the end. Okay, make sure it's got .accde because we want that file type, the executable one. Don't take that .accde off, just leave it there, and then click your save button. And as we said, that's what the saved executable will end up looking like. It's a different sort of beast with graph paper and grid lines on it and a padlock. Okay, now close the Access database that we've used to make that ACCDE version, and then in normal Windows, go to that ACCDE version and you'll see the padlock and all that sort of thing on there. And then what we need to do is double click it, and you'll notice that the dog club will start up. You put in your DOGS. So don't hold down shift this time, just double click that ACCDE to check out what it does. So if you try to do Control G to open VBA, nothing will happen. If you do your usual hold down your FN key and then press F11 to open up the side navigation bar, that will not happen. If you right click on anything to try and get to a menu to change it, there's no right click menus that come up. So we fully locked down the database and it's safe from being damaged by the client. Okay, so that looks pretty good. But the final thing is to make the ACCDR version. Now, why do we have to make another version? What was wrong with the DE version? It looked really great. Started up, client couldn't get in and to change anything that was developer type stuff that we do. The client doesn't do that. We need to make this DR. So remember that Access runtime in case they don't have Access. That's when you need the DR copy, but we're going to do the DR copy anyway, even though they do have Access, because the DR copy is more secure. All right, so all you have to do is we just do a Control-C, Control-V copy of this one, and it'll make a file called copy, and then you just carefully change the ending on it to be .accdr instead of ACCDE. Now, Windows will give some sort of warning message or whatever while you're doing that. Just ignore that. But anyway, we're not doing anything inside Access. We're just in Windows Explorer. Just right click on this one and go copy, and then right click in your Windows Explorer anywhere on the screen and go paste. And then right click and rename this pasted version, copied version, so it's got .accdr on the end. And then we got the final runtime release version for the client. So that's just a simple copy and paste. So we're not actually going to use the ACCDE. Now, why aren't we going to use that? Well, a few things. When you start that one up, it does actually show the full ribbon here. And when you click cancel, it doesn't close down the database. It goes to another thing to pick a file to open. So we don't want it really doing that. That's not great. And the other thing is you can hold down the shift key and start up this ACCDE version with full developer access and full ribbon functions. And we certainly don't want the customer knowing that little hold down shift trick and doing that and finding a back way into the database, or someone who just gets onto Anita's machine, sneaks on. We don't want them messing things up. An unhappy employee or ex-boyfriend or someone like that. So we're going to make this ACCDR version, and that's going to be a lot cleaner. When it starts up, there's no ribbon whatsoever up the top. So that copy and rename to .accdr will make one that when you double click, there's no ribbon up the top. So that's a lot better. And also if you hold down the shift key, there's nothing happens. You won't get a sidebar come up or a ribbon or anything like that. Okay, so it's a better, more secure version. So we're just going to use that one to give to Juanita rather than the DE. But you just have to make the DE, and then when you copy and paste it and call it a .accdr, Windows will do it like the runtime one without anything on the ribbon and no way you can open it up in developer mode. All right, so that's why we need the ACCDR version. So hopefully that hasn't been too confusing and you've got your ACCDR version, and now we're good to go. So again, that was a bit of work. So that's a section finished. So you might want to take a break. I think we've just got to do, we're at 45 minutes. I think this is going to be about 1 hour. We've got to set up the desktop shortcut for the database and put it onto their desktop. And then we've got to just go through what they do to back up the database each day or two. So if anything goes wrong, they've got a backup copy of it stored somewhere else on an external drive or a USB stick. And then that's it, I think. So we're nearly there. So we can make a desktop shortcut. So what we're talking about here is on their desktop, their Windows desktop, and this is just the background we have. We're going to make a little thing here that has the Dog Club icon on it. And see that little curvy arrow? That means it's a shortcut. So when they want to start up their database, when they first start their computer at the beginning of the day, all they have to do is double click on this and bang, it goes away. Now, it would be really nice if they could click the usual Windows Start thing and there was a thing called SDC in there, but we haven't been able to find anywhere on the web by Googling or any way that you can sort of have Start SDC as though it was a Microsoft application. Okay, that doesn't seem possible. There was some stuff about going in and changing registry entries and things like that, but that's not the sort of thing that I like messing with unless it's from a reliable source and they've given you really good instructions to do it, okay? And it's not something I'd be wanting you guys to have a go at doing. But this works fine, right? We just get a shortcut on the desktop. They can just reduce everything down so their desktop showing, double click on that, and in they go. Bing, ba, bang, and it's done. So how do we make that little shortcut? Well, it's like making a shortcut for any kind of access thing, any kind of Windows thing that you're going to put onto your desktop. And we just, we're in Windows Explorer here, and that's our ACCDR one. So we just go to that one and then we right click on that one, and that'll bring up this menu here. And the one we want is create shortcut. So you just find your ACCDR one. That's the E one, not the E one. Read the ending carefully. You want the DR one. Right click and go to create shortcut. And what'll happen then is, Windows will just make the shortcut. So when you come back into Windows Explorer, you'll see this one with the kind of curvy arrow in the bottom left-hand corner. That's the shortcut one, and that's what it's called, but that's not a great name for it. So we're going to change that. And we're also going to have the doggy on here instead of the letter A. So how we do that is right-click on this guy, the shortcut guy, not the DR, the shortcut one, and go to properties, and that'll bring up a properties panel that looks like this. And I think it'll be on the shortcut tab when it comes up. Click on the general tab, and this is where it's got the name for the thing. So I don't want that big, ugly, long name. So I can get in this box and just type, and just change it to SDC, because you would have noticed on ours it just had the doggy symbol and said SDC underneath it for Southern Dog Club. So make that change, but don't click OK yet because we're not finished. You now can go back, and we're going to click on that shortcut tab and make it have the dog icon for the shortcut instead of the letter A with the graph paper and the padlock. We're going to change it to be our little SDC doggy. Now how we do that is we get off the general tab and get onto the shortcut tab and click on change icon. Okay, then they give you all these icons you can use. We don't want that. We want a special dog one. So click on browse button here, and that'll open up the usual Windows browser, and just go to that same place where you got the icon when we were making the icon for the taskbar down the bottom of Windows and all that stuff before. We just need that same ICO file from the download, so just find that, navigate till you've got it, and then click open, and it'll show that yes, that's going to be the icon we're changing into, and that all looks good. Okay, and it shows where we got it from, and then you just click OK, and then there should be the shortcut now that's set up like this. It hasn't got the letter A and the graph paper on it anymore. It says SDC and has the picture of the dog instead. So all we need to do is put this particular shortcut on the Windows desktop. Now, how do we get to the Windows desktop and do that? Well, we don't actually have to get to the desktop. Just right click on that guy that's now got the doggy picture on it and go to send to, okay? And send to enables you to go to desktop, create shortcuts. So you want to go down to this one, then go across to that one, then click it, and that will make one on your desktop like that has the doggy icon and it says SDC. They're the two changes we just made, and that's there on the desktop, ready for them to start up the database, ready for Juanita to start up the Dog Club database on her laptop whenever she needs it. So that looks very professional, and that's very schmick as well. So we're going to deliver a really good application here for Juanita to use. Now, that's all good. Now, you might find that when you're installing this on Juanita's computer, first up, remember you need to have a single folder where it goes. We're suggesting you use C, on your C drive, you make a folder called SDC and put everything in that. We're just showing it here where we've got it on a USB drive to just test it out. And so you need all the pictures of all your members and dogs in there. You need your ICO file in there. We've just got our shortcut in there as well. And we've got our ACCDR, which we just right-clicked and renamed to sdc.accdr. We've got that version of the database in there. And right-clicked on that and made a shortcut to make sure it was the right shortcut and everything. So that's all good. But what might happen is when you start the database, like you go to the members form, there isn't any pictures showing, okay? Because the path name we had for the pictures might be different to the folder where you've installed it. Maybe you're a student doing this and you couldn't put it on C drive and make an SDC folder, and maybe yours is on a D drive, IT work SDC folder. And so what we've got for our path to the pictures won't work. So all you have to do is just click the photo button on each of these. This one's Andy Akito, so just find Andy's picture and get that, and just keep going to the next one. We'll just have to click photo and get all the pictures in and save it, and then you'll have all your pictures there. All right, so that might be something you have to do. And if this shortcut isn't working because it's a different path to what we've done here in our teaching example, that's fine. Just delete that, remake it here by right-clicking on that guy, create shortcut, get the icon in there, make it say SDC, then right-click that and send it to the desktop on your computer or Juanita's computer or your client's computer and all that sort of thing, and that'll be good. So yeah, you might have to kind of jiggle around with those things to get it fully working on the client's computer. But once it is running there, it'll be beautiful because all they can do is just do all their work on there, and they can't go behind the scenes into Access like a developer would and accidentally break anything or mess it up. But we do need them to do backups because something could always go wrong. Juanita's computer could get a virus, okay, something like that, and she can't get into the Dog Club application anymore and can't work out who's paid their fees and all that sort of important stuff. We don't want to lose any data when we've marked off people as having paid their fees. So each day she should just have a little, kind of like a USB stick like that, or an external drive would be even better. Something you can plug into your computer, and then it's not with your computer. Obviously don't put this in your computer bag with your computer. Have it somewhere else stored away, not at the office, have it at home somewhere, in a bowl in the kitchen or something like that, so that's your safe backup copy. Now it's very easy to do for something like this. All you need to do is have your SDC one. Okay, so this is on your laptop, all right? It's actually on a USB. But anyway, this is the one on Juanita's laptop. She just needs to go to Normal File Explorer and open up and have that. It doesn't have to be shrunk down small like this either. It can be the big screen one. And that guy there, then just plug in your external drive or your USB stick or whatever. And on that USB stick, make a folder called SDC Backups. Okay, so that's a special folder. We're going to put our backups of the database. Put that on the USB or the hard drive, a special folder, SDC Backups. And then you can just drag this one across. Make sure it's saying it's copying and not moving it. All right, or you can use Control-C and Control-V. Either way, get this copied across onto there. So that's what you do day one, but you will need to rename that because on day two, you won't have the same, you'll get the same one and there'll be problems. So we just after we've copied that onto the external USB device, just right click on it and rename it. And we've called this SDC. We did this on December 05, 2020. So this is what the database was at the end of December 5, 2020. Okay, so it just needs to be renamed. And the best thing is just make it the month, the day and the year. All right, so that way the USB drive will have several backup copies so you can go back to old things too and check that out. Like if someone says, oh, well, I paid my fees back, in October, why are you asking me for more money? You could go back to the database and see if it does indicate that they were paid back in October or something like that, okay? So you want daily backup versions. That's important. Always do your backups. Don't skip that. Now, can you get into the ACCDR database? Is it fully secure? If there's a problem we need to investigate on Juanita's computer, we can actually hold down Shift on there, but you need to take the .r database, and there's a little trick. You can actually Control-C, Control-V, copy and paste it, and then you rename it to .accdb, okay, and then it goes back to being an Access Developer database, and you can actually get in there and look at things. I don't think you can change a lot of things because of those other settings we did, but if you were the developer and you had to investigate something on your client's machine, just be aware that you can hold down, you can take the ACCDR one, which you put on their machine, or get it off their backup USB stick or drive, and you can make a copy of it and then rename that copy to have .accdb on the end instead of ACCDE, and then you can double click the ACCDB copy you've made, and you can actually get in there and look at the tables and other things like that. So it's just a handy little trick to know, but don't tell the client they can do that, for goodness sake. And the last and final thing to finish off our Southern Dog Club database course for now anyway, because I think we've got everything we need. You could have made an alternative main menu design. We kind of went with this design because that was the one the client liked, and it works fine. But if you were doing it for other clients or other people, maybe they want something more like this. A lot of Access database applications just use a full screen like that, sort of a bigger window, and they just lay it out like this, okay, where it's just simple lines which people can click on for the links. So that's just another way of doing it if you're doing another project where you've thought, wow, I've learned to make an Access database for someone now and make a release version and put it on their computer. So my friend Bob wants one as well now for his drone flying club or something like that. So you might decide for Bob, you're going to use this sort of menu design. The Dog Club one was very specific to that client. So just remember, you can do different form designs, that's fine. Or you can even take an existing design and change its appearance totally to look like this. That's fine as well. So the development steps are all done. Hooray, we are finished. And we're nearly on the hour for the video. Now remember, if you are developing one for Bob's kind of drone flying school or something like that, these are the steps you need to go. So the first thing is to work out what Bob needs to do in his business, so you can think about building those functions in. But once you've got all that worked out, the design and everything worked out, you always create the database and its tables first, okay? And put some simple test data into them. That's always step one in building a database. Then you need some input validation, okay, to make sure that people don't leave important fields like their phone number blank, all right? Then we can create our queries to extract information, which later on we're going to turn into reports. Then we can go on to the screen forms. Now, it's best to do queries and then the screen forms in case you need to build a screen form off a query, which we didn't show you in this course, I don't think, but we do have another Access course where we show how to do that. If you ever need to, just check it out on our YouTube videos. Then we do the screen forms, okay? In this case, we just did members and members' dogs. Then you have to make these input masks for the tables. Remember, we did that to make sure they were typing in numbers for a phone number and didn't type letters. And you make your drop-down lists on the form to make it easier for them to type things in. Well, they don't have to type them in. They can just pick and click off the list. Then you make your reports. So most of the time, just taking some queries you made and turning them into reports. So that's pretty easy. Then you do the main menu where they can just link everything together and go to different things that they need to do. Then we started making it all fancy and nice. Okay, we made the opening splash screen. We made the password. We haven't put in there that we made all those buttons. We made all those navigation buttons and the add a photo just by click the photo button and pick, and away you go. And then we had to do this last lesson to finalize it, make it client ready and have it all locked down and secure and all those things. So that'd be the steps you'd do it in. We'll have to put in there about the buttons. The buttons was a really big lesson and a really important thing we had to do too. So we'll get that into there as well. in the updated print version in the downloads. So remember, if you need to see the whole course because you've skipped lessons and you want to go back and do them, or you want to tell your friend, hey, do this course, it's really good, it taught me everything I need to know, just go to Passie's World of ICT, click on MS Access SDC, that's the Dog Club. This is the other one, so if you're interested in making forms from queries and things like that, you could go into that one. But this is the recommended beginner ones, the Dog Club. And then you can scroll down this page and it shows you the lessons, all of them in the order which you need to do them in. So, round of applause, the end of the Southern Dog Club app build. And so you can build an application now for someone in Microsoft Access. So that is really sweet. So give this video a big thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe to our channel because we're putting out other videos about Microsoft Excel and using that. Things about Python programming if you want to get into programming. We got some fun things in Adobe Animate. So I've got all sorts of things we're doing. So subscribe and you'll get notified when we do videos. Or just subscribe to say thanks, Passie, for doing all that work and figuring this stuff out and saving us hours and hours of looking at Stack Overflow and Googling. You must subscribe, 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 subscribe. And we'll see you in the next lesson, which might be a Python lesson, but it's all good and it's all IT learning.